Hi. Hello. 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 Hi. So I know it's been a minute, but I'm back. And I'm going to pick up where we left off on World War II Facts. I'll just show you the front again. So we were at the Battle of Britain. With the fall of France in June 1940, Hitler hoped Britain might settle for peace, but Britain's new leader, Winston Churchill, had no such intention. So Hitler planned to launch a seaborne invasion, Operation Sea Lion. For this to work, the German Air Force, or Luftwaffe, had to defeat the British Royal Air Force, the RAF. From July to October 1940, battles raged across the sky from southeast England, and the RAF slowly won control. This is Spitfire. The RAF Spitfire Mk-1A, or Mark 1A, could fly at speeds up to 362 miles per hour, or 582 kilometers per hour. It was faster at high altitudes and more maneuverable than the German Messerschmitt Bf-109E. 8 Browning machine guns in the edges of the wings. International Air Force. The RAF had pilots from all around the world who had fled their German-occupied countries. New pilots received a maximum of only 10 hours training before being sent up to fight. That's crazy. Maximum of only 10 hours. Think about that. 10 hours and then you're like good to go. Hey, let's go fly a plane. Detection. RAF radar systems used 300-foot steel masts to emit radio signals. The signals bounced off enemy planes and were picked up by radar receivers, alerting pilots to resume battle in the air. This new technology helped Britain win the war. Dogfights. As the RAF and the Luftwaffe fought for control of the skies, dogfights, close-up battles between fighter aircraft, were common, as portrayed here in the film Battle of Britain. These were the Messerschmitts. 2 types of Messerschmitts formed the fighter mainstay of the Luftwaffe. The Bf-11C, an escort fighter for long-range bombers, was slow, hard to handle, and inferior to British Hurricanes and Spitfires. The Bf-109E was faster, but its 410-mile range limited its effect. On watch. Ground crews used powerful and sturdy binoculars, such as these used by the Luftwaffe to watch for enemy aircraft. Both sides used radar for long-distance observations. In the air, combat pilots had to stay alert for enemy aircraft. Göring's Air Force. Luftwaffe Chief Marshal Hermann Göring watched the Battle of Britain from the French coast. He believed they could destroy air defenses in southern England in 4 days and the RAF in 4 weeks, but the Luftwaffe failed. Bombing raids. The terrifying drone of enemy bomber planes heralded mass destruction. Each side believed that bombing strategic targets such as factories railroads, and oil refineries would cripple the enemy war effort and destroy the morale. Thus, Britain endured the Blitz from 1940 to 1941, while Germany was bombed repeatedly from 1942 and Japan from 1944. Here we see firefighting. Most bomb damage was caused by the fires they ignited. Firefighters risked their lives to keep the flames under control and save anyone trapped in the burning buildings. Air raid survival. During air raids, people hid in underground shelters, in cellars, or in makeshift shelters in their own homes. Despite heavy bombing of cities, many people survived. The Blitz. Germany tried to force Britain to surrender during September 1940 to May 1941 by bombing its major cities, including London, Liverpool, Glasgow, and Belfast. More than 60,000 civilians were killed and 2 million homes destroyed in the Blitz. Bombing of Dresden. The Allied bombing of the German city of Dresden in February 1945 created a firestorm, destroying the city and killing between 30 and 60,000 civilians. With few military targets, many condemned the raid as a war crime. This is a bomber machine gun. Gunners with powerful machine guns were slow-flying, heavily laden bombers' only defense. When possible, bombers flew in large convoys escorted by fast, nimble fighter planes to fend off any attack. Defend the pilot. Gunners on bomber planes sat or stood in exposed gun turrets to give them a clear view of the skies and any aircraft. German Gunner Award. The Luftwaffe awarded its War Service Badge to gunners on a point system. Shooting down one enemy aircraft was 4 points. 16 points achieved the award. This is incendiary bombs. Thousands of these bombs were dropped on British and German cities. Combustible chemicals created immense heat to set buildings alight. Bomb power. Late in the war, Germany launched its most secret and deadly weapons. They were the V-1 flying bomb and the V-2 rocket. Both bombs carried warheads that weighed around 1 ton. They were capable of great damage. Total war. Until mid-1941, the war was mainly in Europe and North Africa, between the Axis, which consisted of Germany, Italy, and some East European countries, and the Allies, Britain, France, and their empires. After France fell, Britain stood alone, but then Germany invaded the USSR, and Japan attacked the US at Pearl Harbor and the British in Malaya. The war was then fought worldwide. Into the USSR. On June 22, 1941, the Germans attacked the Soviets in Operation Barbarossa. This broke the 1939 Nazi-Soviet pact and brought the U.S. into the war on the same side as Britain. Seen below are German panzer units passing through a blazing Russian village torched by fleeing civilians. The big three, the leaders of Britain, the USSR, and the U.S. met twice during the war, seen here in February 1945 to coordinate their efforts. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date that will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. Franklin D. Roosevelt, 1941. Fighting for France. When Germany invaded France, General Charles de Gaulle Wright went to Britain and raised the banner of free France, leading overseas French troops and resistance fighters. Mussolini and Italy did not join Germany's side until June 1940, when it declared war on Britain and France. Italian troops fought with the Germans in the USSR, but Italy always remained a junior partner in the Axis. General Hideki Tojo. Tojo led Japan's pro-military party and became prime minister in October 1941. He sided with Germany and Italy. Had Japan attacked U.S. and British territory in Asia and extended Japan's empire. He was tried for war crimes in 1948 and executed. In enemy territory, many individuals risk their lives by entering enemy-occupied countries to spy, work with resistance fighters, and sabotage enemy plans. The British set up Special Operations Executive, or SOE, and the Americans formed the Office of Strategic Services, or OSS, to train spies and devise ways to hide equipment for a mission. Many spies were killed or captured, tortured, and sent to concentration camps. And these are just some kind of unique little devices that they used. Suicide pills. He had a pipe pistol, the bullet in the barrel, hidden knife inside of a pencil, propelling pencil pistol. That's pretty neat. This is a poison pen threat. It fired a gramophone needle when the cap was pulled back and released. It was not lethal. The idea was the users would spread a rumor that the needles were poisoned. Footprint disguise. That's pretty neat. They just used these strapped to the bottom of their boots to trick people into thinking it was just local footprints. Pocket radio. Suitcases containing radios. Various spies. There were cards, playing cards disguised, but they actually had maps. Matchbox cameras, and then just different examples of the radio. The prisoners. Millions of soldiers were captured or surrendered to enemy forces. Most of these prisoners of war spent months or years locked up in specially built prisons. The Geneva Convention of 1929 stated that prisoners were to be treated well. Many attempted to escape, but few succeeded. Civilians were detained at internment camps, including the Germans in the United Kingdom and the Japanese in the United States. Happy to be alive. In April 1945, 9,000 POWs were freed by the U.S. from the German Stalag 326 camp. Life in captivity. This men with a mission. There were just some tools that they made out of different parts, like bedposts. Button compass. It was a tiny compass that was hidden inside the buttons of their uniforms. First aid or food parcels. There was blades hidden in their buckles. Punch daggers. Code breakers. A code replaces words with letters or symbols. A cipher is a form of code that adds or substitutes letters to disguise it. Both sides used codes and ciphers for messages during the war. Some Allied cryptographers, or code breakers, cracked the Axis codes, revealing valuable information that gave the Allies advantage over their enemies. That's just a different example. This one was basically an early computer. This was the German Enigma. It was a cipher machine used during World War II. It enciphered each letter with alphabetical rotors placed on a cylinder in a predetermined order and a set of plugs in the plug board. The settings varied each day, giving trillions of possible combinations. Other countries had their own cipher machines. There's basically one built into a small ring. There's a different version of a cipher called the Crya, invented in 1924. Use a spring-driven alphabetic rotor to substitute each letter with a different one every time the letter was used in a word. The Germans used the Crya in the war, not realizing that the U.S. had already broken its code. This one's called the Purple Cipher. The Japanese Purple machine used a plug board and telephone switches to create a complex cipher device. U.S. intelligence cracked Purple's code in September 1940 and built a replica. America at war. After the shock of Pearl Harbor, the U.S. transformed its economy into a giant war machine, mass-producing every weapon to win on land, sea, and air. Expenditure on war production rose massively. Unemployment disappeared and wages doubled. Unlike every other country at war, the U.S. boomed, and most people had more money to spend than ever before. There's a Browning machine gun, which was a standard weapon in U.S. bombers. There's a demonstration of mass production. Aircraft factories played a major role in turning out arms. In total, U.S. factories built 250,000 aircrafts, 90,000 tanks, 350 destroyer ships, and 200 submarines. By 1944, they had produced 40% of the world arms. That's amazing. Fighting with fire. Flamethrowers, such as used by the U.S. Marines on the Guadalcanal and the Pacific, were often used to set fire to buildings or destroy protective vegetation to flush out the enemy. Parachute Jeep. U.S. Army Jeeps could be dropped by parachute. Developed in 1940, the U.S. Jeep was one of the best loved and envied of all war vehicles. Its four-wheel drive made it versatile in most terrains. This is an early version of a Mustang. Early versions of the NA P51D Mustang were limited in altitude and range, but a better engine, larger fuel tanks, and a cut-down rear fuselage made the fourth version, the P-51D, one of the best fighter planes of the war. It was used to defend bombers over Germany. This is a neat little blurb on the Navajo code talkers. The Native American Navajo, fluent in their own language and English, were used by the U.S. Marines to transmit secret Allied messages in the Pacific War. This is a B-24 Liberator. Having flown all the way from southern Italy, this B-24 Liberator with long range is flying low as it bombs oil fields in southern Romania. This is an early flak jacket, just for some protection. It says by 1944, 13,500 were used by the 8th Air Force in Europe. we'll stop there for the night. So, good night.